two things I want to make sure. One of them being, you'll see it a lot. There's kids that are like, and we don't need to say SEC, but we'll say Division I. But since no one's offered them, it kind of, I don't know if maybe you experienced that, like for you personally as a player, but it seems like the process will drag on, waiting until that offer comes in from whoever wants to shoot it, and then it's like, boom, it rains, and there's 15 of them. And so let's say you're on this 85, 87 kid. Let's say all through junior year, no offers. Guys dominating. People are, let's say you hear the guys in the industry talking about him. Senior year comes around. He didn't get any better, though. Let's say he's just as good, 85, 87. Is that someone you realistically take a chance on at the SEC, or is he like, hey, maybe we need to funnel you to a JC, or like what? Like, you know, I know it's a crazy scenario, but
it is, and it's hard even more now because the roster limits.
Yes.
And so there's so many like back-ended questions of like, what does the roster look like for next year, et cetera, et cetera. If nothing were to change at all and he were to get no better, that would change some things.
Of course.
Just because basically a year of what could have been development, especially at a young age in high school where like newbie gains can happen so easily.
Yeah.
If nothing changed, that'd be hard.
Of course.
If it improved a little bit and the frame filled and things changed, then you can say to yourself, look, even though it's just a little bit better, it still is better.
Yeah.
But I think an underrated thing that's going to change a lot of recruiting processes for these kids is going to be the roster size.
Yes.
And it's going to frustrate some people. It's going to prolong the process for some of the people who are on the bubble a little bit versus like the no-brainer August 1st, hey, here's our offer, kids, which is going to be a little bit challenging in the beginning.
Yeah.
But with that example specifically, that would be one of those that I think, again, no better, probably need to wait and see what things happen and if it improves at like Mount Sac, Chafee, whatever it is.
Yeah, okay. And so the other one was, so we have that. Okay, then we have the 90-94 kid. Let's say he's got some offers. Let's say you guys were his number one choice. We'll just speak for this exact scenario. And you were like, yeah, the stuff's good, but you can't throw strikes, or the breaking ball is flashy, not consistent. Then he comes out next year, command's the same, body's the same, everything, but he starts flashing 90, let's just say 95. Is it like, okay, yeah, now, like you said, a little bit better. We're guessing we're going to get him in the zone and all that. How do you feel about that kind of scenario?
I still think it's hard.
Yeah.
Like, again, with the roster of 34,
yes,
you can't have people on your team who, if they got no better when he walked on campus, you can't have somebody on your team where you just can't put them in the game because injuries happen in the fall, maybe something happens early in the spring. You had 17 pitchers, now you have 13, and that guy's one of the 13, but you can't throw him because he can't throw strikes.
Yeah.
Versus, let's say, for example, those were the only two kids that we were on at 85 to 87 can get outs.
Of course.
If it's in the zone with three pitches for strikes.
Yep.
And you know you can throw that in the game because he's going to throw strikes.
Exactly. And I'm glad that you said that. I was hoping that was your answer because that's something that these kids are starting to see now. The roster changes, and it's gonna keep going, the conversation. Like, whatever you're able to touch on, if you could explain that for more detail, like for the people that don't understand, like what exactly happened with the rosters, where are we at currently, what are you hearing, like whatever you're allowed to share, please, if you don't mind.
For sure. So what happened was the NCAA changed roster sizes to be from what used to be 40 players now to 34 starting next year.
Okay.
We do not know when that 34 has to be basically announced of who is on your team and who's not. And so the limbo effect of that is how the recruiting process is getting a little bit dusty for a lot of people. And what we do know is that will be the case. We don't know if it'll be like first day of classes or first game or first fall game, whatever it may be.
Wow.
But that's changing everything just because for a long time we've been recruiting as if we were going to have 40 players.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, oh, wow, we have 6 less roster spots.
Wow.
And so the biggest thing, and honestly, advice for people out there, especially with younger kids, is don't specialize positions so fast because two-way players are paramount now. We have 3 guys in our team right now who are two-way players.
Yeah.
And if you can do both in a roster of 34, all you do is increase your value.
Yeah.
Even if it's just a defensive replacement who can also pitch and throw strikes.
Yeah.
Or you're a hitter who can really bang, but also if we need you to close a game, you can fill up the zone with different pitches.
Yeah. Yeah, the roster thing is going to be like I'm seeing it now so much to the point where I know the answer, but it's like still you want to see an 88 to 91 lefty get some love. And it's like, whoa, last year you were already committed.
Exactly.
And right now it's like, well, if you're not lights out, if your breaking ball is not like, hey, like you said, we know that you're going to come in and be an impact guy as a freshman. We got to wait a little bit because you need to see that would be crazy if day one of classes, you guys got to have the 34, right?
It would be. That would be crazy.
Yeah. Do you really obviously everything's a guess, but do you really think the NCAA would do something like that?
To be honest, I have no clue.
Yeah.
That's the meetings that I'm not a part of.
Yeah.
And I'll just read and react however it goes, to be honest, and just the way it is.
Yeah. And so like you said, for you guys out there, this is just stuff we're going to have to adjust to. And interesting, too, that you said about not specializing. What are you seeing? Is it in the recruiting scene or like as far as two-way guys or what did you mean by that?
I just think that a lot of players will just give up too early on one of the two.
Okay.
And so now when essentially it's all about value is going to get you a spot. How much value you can bring to a team that we know you can contribute right away.
Yeah.
Or in the future if you can do more than one.
Of course.
And so, for example, us specifically, we're on the hunt for two-way players.
Oh, wow.
Just because, again, if you can fill up the zone and really bang, or if you can really pitch and then also are a lights-out defender that we can bring in as a defensive replacement, whatever it may be.
Something.
That adds value in a roster landscape that's less players. And when you have to be super picky in the recruiting process anyway. And so if you're a PO in the world of 5,000 POs that sits 87 to 90 with a slider and a bad changeup,
good luck.
Exactly, because there's 5,000 of you out there.
Yeah.
But if you're 87, 90, again, whatever that example was,
of course.
but you can also play a decent second base or a decent outfield.
Yeah.
That just raises your floor up a little bit.
Different conversation.
Exactly.
Wow, that's interesting. I was not expecting to hear you say that, to be honest with you. So I want to build on that, actually. When would you say then, let's say you have a sophomore or a freshman or an eighth grader, like where do you, in your opinion, this doesn't mean everybody's going to think it's right, but let's say you're an arm, what is the velo, what is the stuff, like where do you think it's like, okay, yeah, I should just shift and be a PO, or if you're a shortstop hitting, I should just not pitch anymore and be a hitter, like in your opinion?
I mean, I think in the landscape of your individual high school team or your individual travel team, that answer can vary.
Yeah.
And so when it comes to the work that you put in, I think you keep putting in work of both.
Okay.
Because you're young, you still have gains to make on both ends of the ball. And again, if you love this sport, regardless of whether it's hitting or pitching, you're going to love it.
Yeah, of course.
Now, if you go out to a showcase and one is way above the other, and money's involved, of course.
Of course.
But if you're a sophomore and you're sitting 84 to 87 and you have a good slider that is in the mid-70s, upper 70s with a changeup that's maybe going to be pretty good, all right, go pitch here.
Yeah.
But your exit velos are only like 85. That's obviously way, way behind.
Okay, yeah.
But if it's close,
stick with it and
see what happens.
Yeah. And so you said young up to junior year, up to or it could go, you even say up to senior year. Like, what is your opinion on that?
I would say up to senior year.
No, really?
Senior year, it's just, that's fun at that point.
Yeah, of course.
And so the way that it's going to work, I think, is if you just keep doing it up until your senior year, and let's say somebody gives you a nod and they say, hey, we only want you to pitch mainly, then so be it. But if they say, hey, you know what, you swung it okay your senior year, you hit 295 with a couple home runs, you stole a couple bases, we want to see you swing it a little bit, but hey, pitching's going to be your primary.
Yeah.
I think that teams will actually start to do that versus just when you walk on campus, they say, hey, you're only pitching, that's it.
Bats away. Yeah.
Exactly. I don't think that'll happen as much, especially if you show some flashes of talent.
Yeah, that's interesting. Wow. I'm trying to think. I hadn't heard that. Yeah, like that's a very interesting point. And so, okay, let's say you've got a kid that was like debating quitting hitting. Let's say you're recruiting a pitcher again, debating quitting hitting. You guys, let's say you commit him as a pitcher primarily. And then he comes out and hits 320 as a senior with 10 home runs. And you're like, oh, wow. You guys will just say, oh, okay, let's see you swing it then at this point.
We have nothing to lose.
Right?
Like hey, the worst thing that happens is we know you can pitch.
Yeah, so you're good.
Best case scenario is oh, wow, we have a guy who can do both and impact both sides of the ball.
Yeah.
And this is just adding value into a roster where we have less players.
Yeah, for sure. And so I want to backtrack too. We didn't touch on the point about what you're looking at for a pitcher and in the scenario world. What are you looking for when you guys are recruiting? I mean, I know you're not directly, but just from what you know about, the SEC so far and D1, if you're a position player, like what are things that stand out to coaches, to recruiters, stuff like that?
To me, the main thing is you got to flash multiple tools.
Okay.
If you're a kid that can only hit, you have to really be able to hit.
Yeah.
Like you're a positionless guy that we only know as a bat. That's hard to recruit just because we don't know if that's going to translate in the SEC. You're taking a guess.
Of course.
If you can show like, oh, you know what, he's a smart base runner, or hey, he's a good defender. His IQ is up there, and we know that if we put him in situations early, he'll be able to hold his own regardless of 20,000 people watching.
Yeah.
Or at the plate, oh, wow, he's pretty disciplined. Like with 2 strikes, he makes adjustments.
Yeah.
He's able to hit the ball the other way and make adjustments on different pitches, whatever it is. The main thing that I think, again, gets overlooked with position player recruiting is that your top exit velo doesn't matter. Your 60s, in my opinion, barely matter.
Yeah.
I think a lot of the way that you play the game speaks volumes
Of course.
over anything else.
Yeah.
Is what I would tell a position player recruit. Don't focus on the 60s and the exit velos and the infield velos. Like
I've seen some of those videos. It's like, what the hell's going on here?
Exactly.
Yeah, that's funny. Great information, because those points and people that focus on that think I should be getting recruited because my exit velo is 170 or whatever the numbers are. I don't know what they are, but doesn't matter. How does that, like you said, and this is like a simple point that I can remember back to Little League time, where just go watch the game. If you're a shortstop, go learn the game. Where should you be on every pitch? What should you be doing here? What should you be doing there? And surprisingly, how many kids, I mean, maybe not for you specifically, but the amount of kids out there that just don't know the game. And I feel like the landscape shifted so much now because maybe the travel ball world diluted, I don't know, whatever it is. It's just interesting, and it's refreshing to hear you say that for everybody that's going to be listening. Go learn the game, right?
To everybody listening, please watch baseball. It kills me just because you can learn so much from just watching. If you just watch the 7 games, I guess there wasn't 7, but if you just watch the World Series, there's when they play the game like that, and it's like a chess game of different people moving in different positions or errors that cost people games, you just learn so much. And I think looking back on it now, with us specifically, like with me and Raul and a bunch of the guys from around this area, is we practiced a ton.
Yeah.
We played a lot in the summer, but the fall was a ton of practice. And it was long practices of 3-4 hours.
Yeah.
Not saying that's the cure to all this, but we learned
the game,
how to back up bases, how to hit in different situations and things like that, where now you have your winter, your fall, your summer, your spring season. Like when are you going to A, recover, and B, just learn, practice?
Oh my God. I don't even want to start talking about it because it's a whole nother Jesus. But yeah, I mean, with that, something that I see a lot, and people, I don't want to say shove it down people's throats, but coaches shove it down like parents' throats or whatever the scenario is, but it's like showcases. And so for you, what is your opinion on prospects, kids, these guys attending showcases? And when I say showcases, I'm thinking like Perfect Game and not the PG National. Like we're talking just like, let's say you guys are out at some random event or whatever, and whatever the scenario is. But a standard showcase, what is your opinion on kids going out and doing 15 of them a year? Like what are your thoughts on that?
That it means nothing.
Yes.
I understand where people are coming from, where like you want to show progression of whatever it was in the Perfect Game website, and you want to have a 10 score, whatever it is. But when it comes down to it, minimal amount of coaches will just look at your Perfect Game and just say, all right, we got to give this kid an offer. they have to watch you play.
Of course.
And they have to go out there and see it in person and see how you're doing. And when it comes down to it, at the end of the day, if you're going to spend your money going to perfect game showcases or coming in an environment like this and getting better, like just get better. And then the games, you'll show out and you'll perform better and people will hear about it. And your
they'll
name,
find you.
Exactly.
Right.
In most cases, like him, for example, he'll call me and he'll say, hey, I have this pitcher that you should watch. And I will, because I respect your opinion, obviously. Yeah. And there's people like that all around the state, all around the country, who will call me and say, hey, this kid got a lot better. He's under the radar, yada, yada. Mm-hmm. There's perfect game warriors everywhere.
Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, it's a conversation I have a lot because I care a lot. And it's sad when parents that don't know any better, they get basically destroyed, end up having to spend $5,000-$6,000 because somebody's in their ear telling them, oh, well, Coach Isaiah Paige is going to be out at this event or whatever, and that's how my son that's a sophomore throwing 73 is going to magically get recruited. Like, get recruited where?
Exactly.
Like you said, go spend your money where you're going to get better. If you're a hitter, do whatever it's going to take investment-wise or whatever to put yourself in an environment that's going to make you better, right? Mm-hmm. Make you someone that wants a coach like yourself or your guys' hitting coach or any hitting coach in college to want to go watch you, right? You touched on a point. Nobody's really getting recruited from a PG profile. Mm-hmm. The kids that do, though, are what? They're automatics. It's like if you're 98, I don't need to go. I mean, maybe I don't need to go see you. I mean, I'm sure you will, but it's like, yeah, not a fringe guy. If you're a fringe guy, we got to go watch you, right? And
yeah,
so,
if you're getting recruited like that, then again, yeah, you're top 50 in the world, whatever it may be. Again, no freaking brainer.
Of course. You
should go play college baseball at some way in the Division I level.
Yes.
But for most cases, there's so many players out there that we see. Like let's say we go to Georgia or we go to a tournament in Indiana, whatever it is, with 100 teams.
Yeah.
We are around these fields of complexes where there's like 4 different fields.
Yeah.
So essentially, I don't know what the math would be, but we're watching thousands of players in a day. And we're online looking at thousands of players in a day. Regardless of what your numbers say on PG, we're going to have to go watch you.
Of course.
And you're going to have to stand out in a world of so many players in some sort of way where your exit velocity, unless you are, again, the best of the best, is not going to stick out, or your actual velocity on the mound is not going to stick out unless you're the best of the best. Yeah. What do you do differently that we can't find in a PG profile or we can't find anywhere else in the world?
Yeah.
Is what matters.
Yeah, that's important because people don't realize that, and then they might even hear you and then still think, I'm going to go into 8 PGs this year because they sent me the letter and it says that I'm invited.
Exactly.
So I need to make sure that I go. So with that, that's kind of like something for me that I would consider a turnoff when people think like that. But so what are some of the biggest turnoffs you see in players that you're recruiting? Let's say you're talking to a guy. Let's say I'm a junior. I'm a right-handed pitcher. We're communicating. You guys are interested in me coming to Missouri. What would be something that a player would do that would turn you guys off immediately? And it could be on the field or over the phone, whatever it is. Give me a couple.
Right now, the biggest one that sticks out is honesty within the recruiting process. Okay. And when it comes down to it, let's say you're a player and they have no consideration of Missouri. Like they're entertaining our calls, but at the end of the day, we have no chance. But you want to come on a visit still. And in the world of where Instagram likes and attention matter, people just want to collect offers and collect visits just to say that they did it and post it. Yep. Again, we don't see that until the very end of it.
Of course.
But that sucks, and we have to do a better job, and I have to do a better job of weeding that out early.
Yeah.
Of like, hey, do we actually have a shot with this guy, or is he just blowing smoke and wants to have a visit?
Yeah.
On the field, something that I'm super passionate about, even with our own players, with pitchers specifically, is this weird notion of wanting to throw 6 or 7 different pitches, but you can't throw 2 or 3 for strikes. And so if I go watch you pitch or you send me video of yourself and you say, hey, Coach Paige, I threw a bullpen today at AOP and I sat whatever and I threw my slider, changeup, splitter, cutter, curveball all today and here's the video of it. And then I look at the TrackMan chart, or I look at you throwing them, and they're nowhere near the zone.
Yeah.
It's like, hey, man, we have guys who are going to be pitchers who get drafted who throw 3 pitches.
Yeah.
Why do you throw 6 or 7?
Yes.
It's nonsense. Stop. Just get your 3 that are good, get 2 that are good.
2.
And then if you can do that, then expand.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think people, which in a way, like they'll watch Trevor Bauer, they'll watch whoever and say, oh, he throws 7 pitches.
Yes.
When Trevor Bauer was in college, I bet you he didn't throw 7 pitches.
Nope.
Or in high school, he wasn't throwing 7 pitches.
Nope.
He knows the baseball so well now
Of course.
that he can manipulate it that way.
Of course.
You're too young to do that.
And I always tell people, exceptions don't disprove the rule.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like just because, like you said, the perfect one, Trevor Bauer, you, Darvish, all these guys, you're not them.
Yes.
You are not them.
Yes.
So don't try to be them. Like something I always say is you can't be a Honda and expect to move like a Ferrari.
Mm-hmm.
Like you're not them. I'm sorry. It doesn't mean you're less of a person. You just got to be the best you.
Exactly.
You know, if you're somebody that's, I don't want to say worthy, but your talent is at the level of someone like yourself's attention,
Mm-hmm.
then let's make sure we're doing stuff, you know, correctly. Hey, let's perfect that second pitch, you know, and
Yes.
then address the conversation from there. But no, I like that. You know, from there, it's kind of like a toss up, you know, and seeing, you're going to see, like you said, that guy might throw this slider like this, and that guy might throw that slider like that. You know, you're out at the showcase. Let's say you're seeing some of the best, you know, arms. They're all getting attention. They're all, you know, developed. They're all maybe training in places like this and that and whatever. What's going to be the first thing that you try to notice that isn't the norm?
Mm-hmm.
You know, like obviously velo, obviously the slider bangs, obviously, you know, X, Y, and Z. Is there anything, if anything, that you're like, okay, well, I know that X, Y, and Z coaches are going to be watching his, I don't know, front side, whatever, and you know, fill it in. Anything that?
I think an underrated part, if I'm understanding the question
Yeah.
right, is like, how do they do with runners on base?
Yeah, yes, exactly.
Because that's something, again, with a smaller roster, when you're going to pitch,
Yeah.
how do you know the game well enough to be a 1-3 to the plate, know how
Yeah.
to pick off, know how to handle a runner being on second base?
Yeah.
Because when you get to campus, we're going to expect that that's there. We don't want to coach that.
Yeah.
We want to maybe fine-tune it where you fit what we want to do in terms of holding runners and picks and
Yeah.
stuff. But otherwise, you should be able to walk on campus and have that.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of the times it's high school programs. Like for me, for example, Damien, I got lucky.
Yeah.
Because that was a college coach who was just coaching high school baseball at the time. And so I was in a college environment
Of course.
where that was the standard.
Yeah.
All I knew was 1-3 and unders.
Yeah.
In some cases, that's not happening.
Yeah.
And so if I go out and watch and you get runners on base and you're a 1-5 and you're completely disregarding every runner on base just to light up the gun,
Yeah.
are you really ready?
No, probably not. No, that's exactly what I was asking. And that kind of takes me to the next point. So, you know, you talk about Damien High School. If you, like now the experience that you have, you've been at every level, you know, every level that's the highest level. If you could go back and do your career over, in a sense, or do stuff differently, or relive, or whatever it would be, what would that look like for Isaiah Paige?
I probably would have put less pressure on myself, I think, and worked harder in a way.
Okay.
I think a lot of people will say that now that they look on their careers differently. But being from this area of California especially, there's a lot of people who are really good players.
Yes.
And so it's easy to look at Corona High School and see all those guys doing whatever they're doing.
Yeah.
And they're very successful. And so you feel worse about yourself because you're not there.
Yeah.
And I think that's also the beauty of being around here. There's a lot of resources. And so I got lucky early to just be told, like, hey, I'm a kid from Diamond Bar, but I could do whatever I wanted to do in baseball. And I got to pitch in the College World Series against a guy who's in the big leagues now.
Amazing.
And so I always want to make it my duty to do stuff like this and talk to you or talk to local high schools just to encourage players to keep going and keep pushing, because I wasn't highly touted as a freshman.
Yeah.
I pitched like 7 innings in the varsity team my freshman year and stayed at Damien all 4 years. I was lucky to have had that experience. You know, Raul and I played with CBA with guys who are in the big leagues now.
Ridiculous.
Like guys who were way, way better than us.
Yeah.
But him and I both, and you also,
Yeah.
like we played at a high enough level to where we made the 1% because we didn't stop.
Yeah.
And so everyone watching, just keep pushing and don't get so lost in the comparison game of it. And it's hard with Twitter and Snapchat and TikTok and
Instagram,
and everything. And again, going back to the question itself, I would have told myself to stop doing that. Stop looking at
everybody else
and just focus on your own journey, because at the end of the day, you'll get to where you're supposed to be, regardless of who's watching or how the journey paves itself.
God has a plan.
He always does.
Yes. No, that's beautiful, and I think that's a great way to end this. Isaiah, it was a pleasure having you.
I appreciate
Thank you so much,
yes,
man.
Sir.
Thank you guys for listening to the AOP podcast. Thanks again to Coach Isaiah Paige for coming out, and we look forward to hearing what you guys thought about this conversation. Thank you.
MIZ.
My guy.
Thank you.
Appreciate it, brother.
No, of course.
That was fucking amazing.
That was cool.
You did a fucking phenomenal job. If I was a player, you just sold me on going there. Like, Vanderbilt? Nah, I'm okay.